Hi, Jeremy Crow here. In this video, I wanted to tell you a bit of a story. This is actually the story of the first time that I ever experienced an astral projection. An astral projection, if you're not aware, is sometimes also referred to as an out-of-body experience, or an OOBE, or just OBE. It's closely tied to lucid dreaming. Now, some people believe that they're different things. Personally, I feel that it's essentially the same state, although it's a different route to get into that state. So I'll explain a little bit about what I mean in the course of the process of analyzing the story afterwards a little bit. So basically, this is when I was a teenager. I was probably 17 at the time. Still living at my parents' or my dad's, and I was trying to do lucid dreaming, or I had been doing lucid dreaming for a long time by that point, mostly my whole life actually, but astral projection was something that I hadn't experienced, and I really wanted to try and have that out-of-body experience. And I had read up about it in various books, and was trying the techniques, mainly consisting of relaxation, visualization, forms of meditation, things like that, and certain visualizations that try and get you out of the body. They weren't working. Now, sometimes I would have these different sensations, like that you would hear about, like buzzing in the head, or different vibration type sensations that you would experience in the process of doing these techniques. Breathing techniques was another part of it. But I was doing these methods and nothing was working. I probably did them for about a month. I tried really hard for like a month. And now, one thing that I did experience was that sometimes it felt like I was really close, and then I would draw back out of fear. So that was one thing that I knew was kind of holding me back, was this fear. And it was just an instinctual fear of the unknown, essentially. It was an experience that I'd never had before, and I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. And so there was a bit of fear there. And the idea as well that there's these ideas about the spirit leaving the body is related to death, right? And so I didn't want to die. I didn't want to, do something that tricked my spirit from leaving my body or something like that, right? And this is the kind of thinking that I had back when I was attempting it when I was a teenager, right? So it wasn't working. And then I had given up pretty much. And one night I just came home from hanging out at one of my friends' places. Tracy's place that I was hanging out with, I believe. And I came home and I was kind of worked up a little. I was still kind of hyper, and it was starting to get a little bit later, and I didn't want to be up all night. And so I decided, you know what, let me just calm down a little bit. If nothing else, these practices that I've been doing to try and do lucid dreaming, at least they relax me, they're relaxing. So I had that, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to calm myself down a bit, do a bit of relaxation, and feel better, right? And I won't feel so anxious and riled up. It wasn't anything that had happened that I recall in particular that had riled me up. I was just full of energy. And so I just lied down on my bed. The lights were on in my room, and I just laid down on my back and did a progressive relaxation. Essentially, relax the toes, relax the foot, relax the ankle, and just imagine it relaxing, and visualize it relaxing, and feel it relaxing. And then move on and go all the way through the entire body until you've done everything. And then you're fully relaxed. And then once I had gone through that progressive relaxation, I just decided to, while I was in that relaxed state, I decided to practice my visualization skills. And so I just imagined myself walking around my bedroom, experiencing various senses. So I tried to engage as many imaginatory senses as possible. So I imagined what my clothes felt like on my body. I imagined what my feet felt like touching the floor as I walked, and the weight of the floor, or the weight of my body pressing against the floor in a sense, right? And the floor pushing back up on me. I tried to, knock on pieces of furniture and listen to the sound and feel what it felt like on my knuckles to knock it. I imagined that there was a piece of chocolate on my dresser or my desk, and I took a bite and smelled it and tasted it and tried to imagine what that was. And now as I'm imagining myself walking around the room, I wasn't picturing the room and me walking around in it. I was picturing what it would look like from my own eyes if I were to walk around the room, and what that view would look like. So it wasn't like a view from outside of myself, watching myself walk around the room. It wasn't a bird's eye view, it wasn't from the side. It was from within me. It was like, if I was walking around, what would I see in my field of vision, right? And I tried to engage every sense, like I said, sight, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, kinesthetic, all of it, and all at once as well. I tried to make it as detailed as possible. I was really, really focusing. I was getting really into it, and really immersing myself in this visualization, this imaginatory experience. And then suddenly, out of the blue, just without any warning, without any kind of, there was no buzzing sensation in my body or my head or anything like that. I wasn't aware of my body. I'd become so focused on this visualization that I wasn't even thinking about the sensations coming in from my actual physical body that was lying on the bed, which, as your body's relaxed, you actually receive, it actually dulls your senses a little bit. And you kind of go inside yourself a little bit, mentally in a sense. But anyways, getting ahead of myself. So I just, all of a sudden, I found myself standing there in the room where I was imagining myself to be standing. So this was really disorienting. I was like, okay, just a split second ago, I was lying in the bed imagining myself standing here. Now I'm actually standing here in the room. So almost immediately I was like, I'm astral projecting. And so I quickly looked over at the bed, expecting to see my body there, lying there, and it wasn't. I know this defies what a lot of people will say when they've experienced it, but this is what happened. I looked over and there was no body there, and I was like, oh, so a lot of the books tell me that you can see your body, when you astral project. So I went over and I pressed down on the bed. I didn't feel anything except for, blankets and cushions and stuff, pillows. But there was no body there, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I started looking around, noticed that a lot of the things were a little bit different, just subtly, like something out of place, or a little thing here that wasn't there before, or slightly different style dresser, or something like, really subtle differences. It wasn't big differences, just little things. And then I realized that the state that I was experiencing in that moment felt pretty much identical to the state that I experienced when I lucid dreamed. And if you're not aware of what a lucid dream is, that's when you fall asleep, you have a dream. When you're in the dream, you realize, oh, this is a dream. You become aware that you're dreaming, and then you can have some level of conscious influence over what happens in the dream, to a greater or lesser extent. But the key component of a lucid dream is that you're aware that you're dreaming. Now, this state that I accidentally put myself in, felt exactly like a lucid dream. In fact, I was able to use techniques that I had learned from lucid dreaming in that state, and they worked. And what I'm talking about here is there's a technique you can use to prevent yourself from waking up prematurely. And that would be basically spinning like a top, or like a Tasmanian devil from the old Warner Brothers cartoons. I did that, and it stabilized the experience, and I didn't feel like I was going to fall out of it or wake up out of it. I was able to kind of, fly. I was able to do any of the things that I was able to do to traverse the dream realm in the same way, traverse the astral plane, I guess you could say, in the same way that I was able to traverse the dream realm. It felt the same. And eventually I just brought myself back to the body, and it was super easy to bring myself back. You don't get lost, where in your body is the most natural place to be. So don't fear that. You hear people say, oh, you could get lost in the astral. That's BS. That's complete bullshit. The most natural thing is for you to be awake, and like, when you dream at night, you don't worry that you're going to get stuck in the dream. It's the same idea. It's the same process that your body is going through, and your mind. I know that's controversial to say amongst, the esoteric crowd, because people really believe that their spirit has left their bodies and is their spirit is somehow traveling the physical world, which doesn't even make sense to me. The spirit isn't, if that were true, then the spirit, how can a non-physical thing be traversing a physical plane? Wouldn't it be on a astral plane, right? Your astral body experiences the astral plane. Your physical body experiences the physical plane. Your mental body experiences the mental plane. Just think about it for a second. Anyways, it felt exactly the same. And eventually, I figured out that this was a method that I could use to get into that state directly from a waking state, without first falling asleep and letting a dream arise and then becoming aware that it's a dream. You could kind of jump right in directly into a conscious dream state. A lucid dream directly. Now, there's a technique called WILD, or wake-induced lucid dream, that's been described by Dr. Stephen LaBerge, a dream researcher. And this is essentially an astral projection, what he describes. Now, what my technique, essentially, if you boil it down, after I've analyzed it and re-experienced, tried it again and figured out what worked and what didn't, the key is to be so engaged in the visualization, first to relax the body, dull the senses. Probably lights off would be better, and in fact, in my experience, lights off is better generally, unless you actually fall asleep and just lose consciousness completely. But you can sit up doing it as well, if you find that you're falling asleep and entering into an unconscious state. Relax the body, reduce the impact of any external physical senses. So if you're wearing constricting or uncomfortable clothing, put on loose-fitting, comfortable clothing first. Get yourself into a state that you can be in for a while comfortably, and relax the body very deeply. This puts you into an alpha state. It dulls the physical senses somewhat because they're not being stimulated, because you're just sitting still, really, in the dark. And then once you get into a more alpha state, that means you're more suggestible, your visualization skills improve, Visualize yourself doing what I was telling you before. Imagine yourself in an environment and then experience that environment as fully and immersely as you possibly can. Immerse yourself in that visualization. Don't concern yourself with transferring your consciousness over into it. Just focus on practicing the visualization as deeply as possible. Eventually, you will just switch over. May not happen the first several times you do it, but if you keep it up and keep up the practice, eventually that fear barrier will fall away. You'll unexpectedly fall into it, something along those lines. You'll transition and you'll find yourself in that imagined state. That's you kind of creating, this is my interpretation, that's you kind of creating a place in the astral and then inhabiting it consciously, moving your consciousness into that place. And then from there you can explore the rest of the astral plane as a jumping off point. You've kind of created your own little space in the astral and then used that as kind of your launching spot. That's essentially it, is to minimize the physical senses, maximize the astral senses, and eventually your consciousness will just be like, oh, okay, well, this is the thing that I need to focus. This is a real thing. This is the important one. The other stuff is not even, it's too weak of a signal. It'll move over to the stronger signal. It's like tuning. It's like tuning your conscious mind into that astral frequency in a sense. Because it latches onto the stronger signal that you've tuned yourself to in a sense. I mean, that's it basically. If you have any questions, have you experienced this yourself? You know, did you use a different technique than I described? If so, I'd like to hear it. Share it with us in the comments, please. And yeah, if you like this video, definitely subscribe to my channel. Follow my work. The description will contain links to my various social media platforms, and you can check out my other material there if you'd like. And I'll see you next week. Bye.